Good evening and welcome to I'm Chris Parnell.
Reporting from Moscow,
Tbilisi,
Times Square.
May your dreams be your only boundaries in life.
welcome to Let's Talk Money. My name is Harvey Cook and I thank you for tuning in today. I'm very excited to welcome our guest Alan Mullen to our program. His childhood aspirations and military background led him to build the very successful Crew Training International. As a military man myself, I can attest that those skills can certainly be applied to building and managing a successful business practice. So without further ado, let's talk money. Alan, welcome.
Thank you very much, Harvey.
Great to have you today. Can you tell us about Crew Training International?
Sure, it'd be my pleasure. The company was formed in 1992 by myself and a partner, and we were formed to provide human factors training primarily to pilots. And by that I mean less about the technical aspects of flying the airplane and more about the teamwork skills that are required to fly an airplane safely and to manage risk and so forth. So we started then, and we've worked our way up over a number of years. We now provide training to the United States Air Force. That's our primary customer, also somewhat to the Navy and the Marine Corps, and then we have employees over in Europe. So we have about 200 to 230 employees on average, generally around the country near military bases.
And what would be some examples of human factors training?
Well, there are four basic segments that are subject areas that we get into. The first one is leadership. There's always going to be a pilot in command, or it might be termed a captain if we're talking about an airliner, and he or she is going to set the stage, create the atmosphere on the flight deck of the airplane. There's a matter of situational awareness. You know, are things going properly or improperly? Do we have a normal situation, or has some abnormal situation come up? Then, to operate particularly a crew-served airplane, or meaning more than one crew member on board, or a formation of military aircraft, where even though there's only one pilot in the airplane, there's perhaps 2 or 4 in the formation. There's communication that has to occur to make sure that not only are we making a right decision, a safe decision, but we're making an optimized decision, and that's a whole different ball game. You've really got to involve all of the crew members to get the information on the table. And then there's the actual decision making itself, which can sometimes lead to conflict management, meaning not that we're arguing, but simply perhaps your idea and my idea of the optimal solution is not something that we agree on. So we need to tease out the facts and then work together to do the best and the safest thing. That's generally how that works.
That sounds like some very sophisticated training to me. Could you share with us your background so we'll know how you got to this point?
Well, I started out as just a young man that was interested in learning how to fly. I learned how to fly in high school. So when I graduated and needed to go to college, I really needed a scholarship. My family wasn't very well heeled, and I needed to find a way to get through school. And I decided to apply to the Navy ROTC program. So they provided me with a college scholarship, and in return for that, I had to do some period of service in the Navy. Since I wanted to be a pilot and I already had a license, I went through my pilot training in the Navy. I went into fighters. I flew F-14s, which are no longer an active airplane, but they were pretty sophisticated at the time, very Mach 2 airplane, swing wing, etc. So I flew Navy airplanes for a total of 13 years, and then I moved to Memphis. I went to work for FedEx, and I flew internationally on large crew-served airplanes, freighters, not passenger airplanes, for about 31 years altogether. So that's kind of how my apprenticeship and how I got to the point where I felt like I knew something about it.
Right. I've read that your company's been very successful. Can you tell us what factors have led to that?
Yes, I can. And first of all, thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that. We were very, very lucky, I think, in that a lot of our early employees, like myself and my partner, were military veterans and had, even though they perhaps weren't flying in the military anymore, they came through that mill, if you will. And it imbues you with a vocabulary, with a sense of responsibility and accountability that was very, very helpful for us in our early days. We really needed to have our employees, our instructors, do a high-quality job for us, even if they weren't being directly supervised. And that military background led to kind of shared expectations about what we thought was quality and they thought was quality. So that got us through the early years quite well, and that was key. Beyond that, of course, we had to develop our own leadership and management skills to keep the company going.
And you mentioned that you've got about 230 employees.
Mm-hmm.
When your company looks for new employees, when you have applicants, what do you look for in them?
Well, it's helpful if they have a background in, to state the obvious, it's helpful if they have a background in the skills that we need in the company at the time. And it's not always aviation skills. We develop courseware, we hire graphics artists to help illustrate our courseware. We do a small amount, a certain amount of video production, nothing as sophisticated as this television show, but we need to find the basic skills. Then when we invite applicants to come in for an interview, what I'm looking for primarily is communication skills and attitude. And I think it's important for young people that want to succeed in the business world. If you look at the #1 skill for both executives, middle managers, and frontline workers, it's the ability to effectively communicate by writing or verbally that really can set you apart from your competitors.
That's a great message for our listeners.
It's underrated, but it's super
Right.
important.
And how do you go about making the hiring decisions? Is that you? Do you have a committee? Is there a checklist?
Oh, there's definitely a checklist.
Right.
We first of all, we just do a lot of work with the resume. We do some validation of that, to make sure that things are accurate. And then we do a telephone interview, because it's kind of expensive, actually, if we're talking about someone from a different part of the country, to fly them into Memphis to be interviewed. So we talk to them on the phone a little bit and make sure that we've done all the basic work. And then it comes down to just judgment. And of course, as I'm fond of saying, good judgment comes from experience. Experience comes from bad judgment.
Right.
So you just have to make some mistakes, learn from them, and then we use our intuition. And we do have a committee. We get together and hopefully, most of the time, frankly, one candidate kind of sticks out as being the best.
Right, right. We're gonna take a short break now, and when we come back, we'll continue this discussion.
Thank you.
When we don't talk, when we don't touch, when it doesn't feel like we're even in love, it matters to me. When I don't know what to say, don't know what to do, don't know if it really even matters to you, it matters to me.
Okay, Josh, do your stuff.
Okay, people, you know the drill. Cat food's only, guys.
Sometimes you gotta live what you believe up in your arms, 'cause that's where it starts. Right here with you and with me. I know well, this love is love.
Generosity, pass it on.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Money. If you are just tuning in, I'm Harvey Cook, and today we have been talking with Alan Mullen, who's chairman of Crew Training International, as he shares his philosophies for work and for life. Welcome back.
Thank you.
We talked about the process you went through of hiring employees. Once you get these employees on, how do you motivate them?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to have I think the quality department of your company is very important, because people are not going to be happy in what they're doing. They're not going to be happy with their jobs. They're not going to be proud of it if you're not delivering value for dollar to the customer. So I sit down on day one with every new employee and I make a couple of strong points to them. I said, first of all, no one here should ever ask you to do something that you don't think is the right thing to do, the legal thing to do, the proper thing to do. You should feel like we're delivering value for dollar every day. And then I explained to them that although many of our officers and employees are former military, this isn't the military. This is a civilian company. So by all means, if you have a suggestion or a complaint or a problem, speak to your direct supervisor. But if you don't get the right answer, my door is all, you work your way up the line and come to me if that's what it takes. So I think they have to know that there are channels. As far as overall morale though, and my parents were working class people. My father was a machinist, my mother was a cook in a public school, and one point they made strongly to me is pay and benefits are how you really express to your employees how much you value them. So you can have the greatest Christmas party in the world. If you're not willing to pay a fair wage, you're not going to have happy employees.
Great advice there.
Pretty simple blocking and tackling, really.
Absolutely. What advice would you have for people who are working now or who may be looking for a job if they want to get ahead in their companies? Anything that you would like to tell them?
So you're posing the question, they're hired somewhere now and they're thinking about changing employer?
No, but they're working now, and but they really want to get ahead in that company.
I see. Yeah, I think you have to look carefully at the strengths and weaknesses of the company. Almost take a step back and use your insight into the company, because you work there, to view it from a little bit of a distant position and kind of tick off the strengths and the weaknesses of the company the way that you see it. And then if you think that your talents play to one of those weaknesses, how can you contribute in an area where the company has a need? Then I think you ought to consider some additional education, perhaps pursuing something through correspondence courses or online training or whatever, to try and fit yourself into that niche. Because if you're already a proven, reliable employee, then the best way to get ahead is to match up your skill set with the company's needs and then make it known. That's what you want to do.
Alan, we may have people watching this telecast who are thinking about owning their own business, going into the business for themselves. Are there any particular pitfalls that you've noticed while owning your business that you could talk to them about and maybe how to avoid those?
Well, I think it's tempting in this world right now with low interest rates, it's tempting to want to leverage up early. In other words, go into debt to start your business. I would recommend, first of all, that you try to avoid that, try and minimize a lot of debt early on until you prove that your product is wanted by the market. There are times to leverage up, but I don't think it's in the early days. The other thing that I would suggest to people, well, two things really. First of all, choose something that you genuinely like to do. You're going to work many, many hours as a new business owner, both at work and at home, so you better enjoy what you do. And the second thing is, I found it very helpful to have a partner, because if I commit to you Harvey, I'm going to do this by the day after tomorrow. I'll do it because I don't want to let you down if you're my partner. If it's just me, when you're really tired, you may decide to go to bed. Right. You know, if you follow that, it's good to have that handshake, personal commitment, and use that to motivate yourself to not fail.
Right. There's a lot of young people in Memphis right now about to graduate from high school, about to graduate from college. A lot of students here at Germantown High School. What advice do you have for those young people who are just beginning to look for a job?
Just coming out of school and looking for a job.
Right.
Well, of course, hopefully they have taken something in college that will help to qualify for that job. Right. But I think, once again, I'd give sort of the same advice to someone going to college that you just asked me about starting a business. I said, make sure you do something that you like. I think in order to excel in college, you really need to choose a subject that you like. So based on that selection, try and stay in your lane, but be realistic about it. If the market for jobs doesn't favor your degree, then you're going to have to be versatile and do something else for a while. So, you know, the whole equation of supply and demand, right. If there's a lot of supply, there's not a lot of demand. So you've got to be realistic about your expectations and try and fit into that equation. Right. And again, this is a little bit self-serving, but I will point out that there's a tremendous shortage of airline pilots right now. So for anyone who's not, this is maybe a good example. Let's say your passion is art history. And actually, it's kind of mine. I'm very interested in that. Right. There's few jobs in that field. So maybe you can do something on the technical side and indulge your passion as not your primary means of making money. Right. So you can look at your life that way and think about how you could do it. So airline pilot is not the same as being a brain surgeon. It's a highly trained trade, but a 4-year degree in any subject qualifies you for the job if you have the technical training. Right. So that's a way to do it.
Right. Alan, everybody's using technology in business. Mm-hmm. And it's changing so fast, it's hard to keep up with. How do you use technology in your business, and how do you keep up with all the changes?
I hire people that are younger and smarter than me, and then I get them to teach me. Right. I try to be, I think you always have to have a good amount of self-awareness, and to understand, I'm 62 years old, I am not going to be as facile with networking and systems and the tools that we have today as someone who's younger. So I think when you try and fill a position, if it has to do with the technical operation of your company, that's where I'd be very happy to give a younger person a chance, because they probably know a little bit about it. But I do try and keep an open mind.
Okay. It's time to take a short break. We'll be back in just a moment with more Let's Talk Money.
I can't believe we broke Old Man Hennessy's window.
Correction, dude. You broke. I just threw the ball.
This is really bad. What are we gonna do? Dude, kiss your life goodbye.
Yeah.
Sorry, Big.
Keep smiling, keep shining. No,
Hi. Tell him it was an accident, and we can fix the window. I'll come with you.
oh, that's what friends are for.
GHS-TV has a new website. You can now view any of our shows on our new media pages. Or check out the latest Wake Up Germantown or Red Devil postgame. As always, we're streaming live 24/7. Just visit ghstv.org today.
Thank you for joining us again on Let's Talk Money. Today we're honored to have with us Alan Mullen, who's chairman of Crew Training International. With just a little time left, we want to jump back and finish our exciting conversation. Alan, I've been remiss in not asking you about Top Gun. You and I haven't talked about that, but I have read that you were a Top Gun. Tell us what that is, and because there was a great movie about Top Gun, and I've never met one before.
Well, thank you for that. Top Gun is actually a nickname for the Navy Fighter Weapons School. It's located now in Nevada, but in my day it was in Miramar near San Diego, California. So when I was a new fighter pilot in the Navy, they choose 1 or 2 pilots from each squadron to go through that school as a student. And then when you finish your sea tour, when you get back from your deployment on the carrier and you're due to go to a ground-based billet for 3 years, some percentage of those are asked to come back to the school to be an instructor. So that's what Top Gun is. They run it's like a postgraduate school for fighter pilots. Graduate means getting your wings, meeting all the basic requirements. Then to go to Top Gun is to go to the next level of instruction. And it was going to the movie, and I was not in the movie, but I was involved in the lead up to it. Right. Very exciting flying, but the movie accentuated the me against you part. And really, you can't teach people to do things with that attitude. So we took the expression we used is take the who out of it. Let's talk about what could have been done differently or better, not whether you're a good guy or not. And so it was a great movie visually. They didn't quite capture the attitude of the school. Right. But great advertisement for the Navy. Right.
Well, being an ex-military officer, and in your job now, you're involved very much with leadership. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about leadership, the traits that you think are important to be a leader, and if you have maybe some examples that would help accentuate that?
Well, the most important thing to understand is that the leader is the servant, not the commandante, if you will, and a lot of employees don't understand that. They think, boy, it must be easy to be the leader. No, it's actually quite hard. What you're trying to do is enable people to succeed, and the right role is to be the leader as servant, as I like to say. When I was a very young man, it was my job in one of my summer training periods when I was in college, was to march a formation of men down to the chow hall to have lunch. And it was very difficult to get them there because we weren't very good at marching at that point. So it became time to walk into the chow hall, and I mistakenly turned around and put myself first in line. And I was torn apart by our Marine Corps instructors because their statement was, eat when all your men are fed, sleep when all your men have a bed. And that really landed home for me.
Good advice.
Yes.
Good advice. Can you talk about the challenges of managing a company like yours that has so many different locations, mm-hmm. And in your case, even in different countries, mm-hmm. and how you overcome those challenges?
Yeah, you have just hit the nail on the head. That is the most frustrating thing for me, frankly, as I would like to know my employees better and I'd like to have more direct contact with them. It's just very difficult time-wise, and you know, the airlines now, everything is a connection through a hub city. It's very hard to go to point to point. We're not in a position right now to have a corporate jet, unfortunately. Wish that would happen, but we're a little ways away from that. But it's very difficult to do. So there's a number of online services where you can have a video conference very, very inexpensively, or actually at no cost. There's several offerings out there to do that. So that's one. We try to have video meetings where we can have facial contact and also exchange information when we can. But it's not quite the same as seeing somebody every day. But we do the best we can to use the technology.
I know in the military, there's a lot of goal setting, measuring results against goals.
Yes.
Talk to us about how you do that in your business, and if that's important or not as well.
It is very, very important. And each year, the executive team fills out sort of a survey, and we identify what our corporate goals are and what our individual goals are for the upcoming year. We agree on those, and then at the end of the year, when it's time for me to do evaluations, I've got the criteria right in front of me. My vice president of operations, for example, said that he was going to do these 5 things. He got 3 of them done, 4 halfway, and the 5th one just fell off the plate. Now, why did that happen? If it was something that he could have done differently or better, then that becomes an evaluation point. More often than not, it was my problem because I didn't give him the resources to get that half of 4 and 5 done. So his goal setting often turns into my report card.
I got you. Alan, unfortunately, business isn't always good. It doesn't always go as we want it to. During periods, and I assume that your company has slow periods as well.
We do.
Is there any management techniques that you might use during those slow periods to get your company through it on the other side?
Well, you know, it depends. If there is a defined lull that you know you're going to come out of, let's say it's a seasonal type thing, what we try to do is encourage people to maybe use their vacation, or we call it PTO, personal time off. So sick leave or vacation is the same to us. A day off's a day off. So we try and help and encourage people to maybe use some of that time to get through the lull period. But if it's because we were unsuccessful in defending an existing contract, and that has happened to us, and we just don't have the work anymore, the best thing you can do as a leader is to level with people. They know what's going on. And if we do have to reduce the force a little bit, the more you can communicate, don't make it a mystery. This is going to happen. And then some people will actually volunteer. They'll say, you know, I've got another option. I've got a job offer here. Why don't you let me go and keep these other folks on board? So that's the best thing you can do. Be upfront about it. Don't treat people like they're kids and they don't know what's going on. They know. They probably know before you do.
Right. Alan, we've only got about 30 seconds left. Can you tell us, do you think that leadership can be learned? And if so, how would one go about that?
The best thing, yes, leadership can be learned, and the best thing that you can do is, all through your life, identify the people that you respected the most as a leader, and then spend some time thinking about and then talking with them about what you think were their best traits. And then cherry pick your way through that, emulate everything they did well, forget about the stuff they weren't so good at, and just borrow from them. That's the best way to go.
What wonderful advice. We're going to wind up, unfortunately. I'd like to thank our guest, Alan Mullen, again with Crew Training International, for joining us today. We hope this show provided valuable insight into the keys to success both professionally and personally, and we encourage each of you in your future endeavors. We hope you will join us again next month on Let's Talk Money.